Okay. Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrnak sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Potter right in on goal. He scores. Oh my! What a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host today, Caroline, and I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Maria from Watertown. Hey, Maria.
Hey, Caroline. How's it going?
It's going. It's about mid-July, so we're just another week closer to hockey season. It's also a million degrees out, and I have to show off some of my fantastic swag from our merch store. If you're not watching on YouTube, I've got a fancy glass with our microphone logo on it. I'm enjoying my juice cocktail here. It's fantastic. I'm keeping cool. How about you, Maria? What are you doing to stay cool right now?
Well, my air conditioners have not turned off much at all during these dog days of summer. So I'm spending as much time as I can maybe out on the golf course and, reading up on as much hockey as I can stomach at this time of the year while everyone else is taking their hockey breaks before development camps and training camps and rookie camps start in earnest. But we've had our time off, and now it's time to take a look at the Bruins roster moving forward into the upcoming season.
I know. It's that time of year where every fan, no matter what team they're on, is asking the question, who's on my team again? I don't know who plays here anymore. What is this roster actually like?
Well, right. All valid questions. What are we going to look like? How are we going to do? And, obviously those are all open-ended questions.
Right.
Starting the season. Right.
Absolutely.
And Bruins management really hasn't done a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah.
During free agency to maybe quell any of the fears or concerns that are being raised by not only us, but many other seasoned Bruins fans. So we're here to help in any way we can, but just rest assured that we likely have similar trepidations going into the upcoming season.
Yep. Well, I'm sorry, but Maria, as we go through Don and Cam's, business dealings from a couple of weeks ago, I'm afraid you're going to get a little hot under the collar. But
see, now I'm trying to stay calm in retirement mode. And you, my friend, are trying to poke the bear.
Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm not the one making these horrible decisions, okay? I'm not making these horrible decisions.
God, help us.
I know. But before we dive right in, we're just going to take a super quick little ad break. Woo. All right, Bruins fans, if you're thinking about picking up some new gear, now's the time. I'm already planning to grab a fresh Pastrnak jersey this fall. Who knows? Maybe he's rocking a new letter on the front. The NHL shop is running tons of season-ending and summer sales right now, including 20% off Fanatics gear. And here's the best part. When you shop through our link in the show notes, a portion of your purchases helps support this podcast. Same gear you'd find at the pro shop, but with way better perks. So stock up, save big, and help keep Bruins Tape to Tape rolling all year long.
Hey, Bruins fans, love the pod? Well, here's an opportunity to join the team. Become a friend of the pod on Patreon and unlock more Bruins content, merch perks, and the community we've built with diehard fans like you. For just $3 a month, join Gallery of the Gods, get ad-free episodes, sticker swag, and a discount in the merch shop. Or go full legend with the black and gold tier. Bonus content, virtual watch parties, more swag, and full access to our Substack. No matter the tier, you're in the room with us. Tap the link in the show notes and take your spot on the bench.
All right, Maria. So here's the current situation as it stands. So we're recording this a little bit early. It's July 11th, recording day, and Boston currently has $2.1 million still left in cap space. So the cap is going up to $95.5 million. And there are currently 3 teams across the league that are over the cap. But keep in mind, teams are allowed to exceed the cap by 10% in the summer, and they just have to get into compliance by the start of the season. And so Boston is currently 6th under the cap. So there are 5 other teams ahead of Boston that have less space than them. So not sure what you make of that. Not sure if it's trepidation, if it was the availability of talent. I mean, in general, what was your impression going into free agency in terms of player availability at all? Like, were you impressed, not impressed with the crop of free agents?
I was not lusting after anybody, if that's an appropriate response. I mean, were there viable players out there? Sure, but I certainly wasn't going to throw the kind of money at Mitch Marner that the Vegas Golden Knights threw at him. And Sam Bennett, by all accounts, was going to stay in Florida no matter what, right? That's just how the writing on the wall was. Brock Besser decided to stay in Vancouver. Right. Maybe that was part of management's plan, right? I think we all, at that time of the year, trade deadlines, free agency, right? We look at it as Christmas in July, and who doesn't want a shiny new toy?
Yeah.
As a gift, but at what cost do you bring that gift to someone?
Yeah.
My issue is that then we go out and sign a litany of, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful in how I describe this, because, anybody who plays in the NHL clearly has some level of skill, talent, and ability, or else you wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But when did the Boston Bruins become the land of misfit toys?
I know.
For lack of a better, we've once again gone out and signed a bunch of Jags. To what end?
Exactly.
To what end?
Exactly. Now, this is something else that I haven't asked you yet. This season feels like, or this, off season certainly feels like a lot of, I don't know if you would say it's the players doing this, the teams doing this, but it feels like it's flirting with circumventing the expected rules, or whatever you want to call it, by doing the trade and sign deal. We saw that with a number of players, but most notably, of course, Mitch Marner.
Right.
And in that particular scenario, that almost actually felt like an extortion situation, that if Vegas didn't participate in a trade to get Marner, that if it went to free agency, that Toronto was threatening then to accuse them of interference. Regardless, it seemed like, aside from the fact that a lot of teams did some very last minute extensions, so we were being teased for a really long time about the possibility of some players hitting the market. They didn't. And then you saw a number of these trade and sign situations. what do you make of that trend? Because I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see that a little bit more as well. I mean, certainly teams would want something in return if their big fish is walking away for nothing, right?
Well, and you know what? I'm all for it for a variety of reasons. Number one, right. You drafted, if we're talking specifically about Mitch Marner,
Sure.
who was drafted by the Maple Leafs, a quote unquote homegrown talent.
Yeah.
As an organization, you have invested an enormous amount of time, energy, and resources, not the least of which is money. And so why would you want to see that individual just go waltzing off and not get anything in return? Now, you as the player and agent, you can say, well, the return on your investment was the fact that I played here for all this time and, I contributed. I was a meaningful contributor to the success of your team. So I can see both sides of the coin in that conversation. I do like the drama of the, stuff that came out about the tampering. However, if you listen, and as you do and I do, we listen to other podcasts, and tampering happens all the time.
Oh, for sure.
It happens all the time. So I think Toronto, to their credit, and I hate to give the Maple Leafs any credit for anything, took advantage of that because they know that the league is taking longer, harder looks at those types of shenanigans or potential backdoor deals. So, good on Toronto.
I suppose.
I know, but listen, we'd be applauding our team as opposed to what our team did was, kind of virtually give away your team's identity, traded away
for nothing.
And I'm not sure that you got. Now, there's no even Steven trades, right? I mean, it would be nice if that's how it worked, but it doesn't work that way. However, in some circumstances, you expect a little something back in return when you trade away your identity and your culture.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. So let's take a quick look then at what business was conducted. So I'm going to go first through the extensions and then we'll talk about the acquisitions. So I'm going to talk about a player real quick, give you the basics of his contract, and then Maria gets to share her honest and unfiltered opinion of this deal. We'll call this a deal or no deal game of free agency for you. So let's start with Morgan Geekie, obviously the one that had all of us wringing our hands a little bit because of just how close to the deadline this one got. And we're all a little, I don't know, jumpy based on last year's situation with Jeremy Swayman. But Morgan Geekie has signed a 6-year, 5.5 cap hit contract, which includes signing bonuses through 2029. He has full no trade for 2 seasons, and then he has a modified no trade in 27-28 to a 17-team list, modified no trade 28-29 for a 12-team no trade list, and a modified no trade for 29 and 30, a 6-team no trade list, and then his final year of the contract, it's just the contract. What do you think of this deal for Morgan Geekie?
I'm fine with the money. The term might be a little bit longer than I would have, I guess, expected or wanted. However, I have said this on more than one occasion. If Pasta is happy, then we should all be happy. Clearly, there was chemistry that developed between these two players, and they made each other better
Yes.
on the ice together. My fear for Morgan Geekie is the expectation of living up to that contract, because now, what he's done is, he made himself a 30-goal scorer for the
Yeah.
first time in a while. And we,
Ever.
as
Yeah.
fans, right, are going to come to expect very close to that, if not
Mhm.
a bit more than that, because, their chemistry didn't really start developing until the second half of the season,
Yeah.
right? So that's my only concern for that. And, I'm the other thing is these no trade clause, they friggin' drive me crazy. I understand why you give no trade clauses to
Mhm.
elite players.
Sure.
Elite players.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
now these no trade clauses are seemingly like, a part of the regular recurrence of
yeah. Mhm.
contract negotiations. Now, I know it's only 2 years, but still, I don't know. I just don't know when this became such a kind of secondary no-brainer, oh, that we're just going to hand out no trade clauses to
Yeah.
everybody and anybody that
Yeah.
signs a new deal with their team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those things that I think there are certainly GMs or teams who hand them out a little too freely in some situations, but what the right circumstances are, I don't know the answer to that,
I
but
don't either, but it just seems like it's become
yeah.
extremely common
Yeah.
in the league.
You can start to see certain teams really get tied up
Mhm.
in a way that's not ideal.
No,
All
because
right.
then it become contentious, right? And
For
we
sure.
saw that happen.
With the Rangers.
There was some dirty pool that happened in with the Rangers with regard to with Jacob Trouba. So
Yep.
just a little aside, but
Yep.
I'm glad Morgan Geekie is back, and I'm glad that he'll be playing
Mhm.
likely. I'm assuming alongside David Pastrnak for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing for me that this contract makes me a little bit nervous is the fact that it expires the same time as David Pastrnak. And, obviously I don't know what the cap is going to be in 2031, but if both players are healthy and continue to play at a high level, they will be young enough to be eligible for at least one more contract in their career. And again, if everything goes really well and they're both still phenomenal players, that is going to be an expensive year. That is
Yes,
going to be
because David Pastrnak is a bargain.
yeah,
He is a bargain.
it
And
is.
actually, I think I heard, because I was listening to the Spit and Chicklets last podcast when they did their free agency review, and Ryan Whitney was just laughing about the value of David. Like it's a joke that David Pastrnak is only, and again, tongue in
Sure.
cheek,
Yeah, yeah.
only making $11 million compared to
Yeah.
other elite
Phenomenal
players
players.
in
Yes.
the league.
Yeah, I mean, just as an aside, even a couple years ago when his contract extension talks were happening, there was talk. This was we're about 2 seasons into
Mhm.
the new contract. He could have really pushed, and if he had for some reason gone to free agency, he could have walked away with at least $13 million. And this was a couple seasons ago.
And you know
So
what? Maybe he will again. I mentioned
right,
this kind of tongue in cheek in our Discord conversation, but how much patience does a David Pastrnak have to be
right,
part of a rebuilding effort, right?
right.
If things become as challenging and trying as they were last season, and I think we all hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Um, how long would it take before he marches into Donnie's office and say, "Yeah, I got to go. Get me out of here."
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. He's not 30 yet, but once they hit 30 and they don't have a cup to their name, I think they really start to get probably a little nervous, but that's a conversation for another day.
For another day.
So let's talk about Murat Husnudinov. So he's one, again, listeners, if you haven't already listened to our conversation about him from a couple episodes, he was a trade acquisition. He came to Boston in the swap with Minnesota, and he came in as an RFA, just a straight RFA. So he was one of those players where if he's basically at the mercy of management. So it was either he's given a qualifying offer and he takes it because he has no arbitration rights, or he's not given a qualifying offer and he's, set free to be a UFA for that particular offseason. So he was granted a qualifying offer, and he actually took a pay increase. So he got a 2-year deal, a nice little bridge deal for $925 as a cap hit. The base salary this coming year is $900,000, and next season is $950,000. So that evens out obviously to $925,000. So management clearly was intrigued enough to give him that kind of a deal, especially considering one of the next folks that we're going to talk about, who did receive a qualifying offer and who didn't receive a qualifying offer in Jacob Lauko. So we're talking right now all essentially pennies, like not even 1% of the cap. And it's interesting who got picked and who didn't. But that aside, because I'm sure we'll talk about that when we talk about the next fellow, Murat Husnudinov, what do you think about this particular deal, the term and the pay? And, based on our conversation about him last month, what do you think?
I mean, does it light my fire? No, it doesn't. Right. But, at least the money and the term seems user-friendly for the organization, and it doesn't lock them in to anything that they can't get themselves out of if need be. But I think, Hustadinov falls into a category of a lot of other guys on this roster in a similar vein that you're like, okay, but why?
Right.
But why?
Sure. Why not? Right. It's kind of like, okay, me and my analogies. So now we're shopping for groceries, and you have to have vegetables, right? You got to eat your veggies. So do you pick the green beans or the carrots? Well, which one? Maybe you don't love either, but which one do you pick? Who knows, right? What he could be something interesting and a good deal. He could be something that's interesting and good trade bait, so to speak. But yeah, when it comes to this amount of money, okay, like, great, maybe. He's such an unknown. That's kind of the problem. Right?
I think that's part of it. And maybe they know something we don't. Maybe they see something we don't. But when you cobble together, 925 here, 950 here, 1.2 here, it's like, wait a minute. What? When you add that up, couldn't you have gotten yourself a viable, proven cent? I don't know. And again, maybe the deals aren't out there. Maybe the deals aren't out there. Maybe there's so much uncertainty with this franchise right now that it's not an attractive proposition to come here. And when you have management that has a reputation for hardball negotiations and nickel and diming players, don't underestimate the fact that there's still a lot of people in the league that don't like how Brad Marchand was dealt with.
Oh,
and I know, they can say we sent him to where he wanted to go. And, there may be some truth to some of that.
Sure.
However, you look like a bunch of boobs.
I was going to say idiots, but yeah.
Boobs, idiots. because you didn't want to pay him.
Right.
So
Exactly. You could have had one Brad Marchand, and instead you went off and bought 10 John Beechers.
right.
So speaking of John Beecher, he's
Oh.
the one that was particularly shocking to me, considering, again, you had Jacob Lauko right there.
Mhm.
So John Beecher, this is interesting. To me, this was a last chance deal. So he just came off of a 3-year deal previously. He got a qualifying offer and a 1-year deal of $900,000. Now, what makes this interesting is he is now in this one season making less than he did in his previous contract. His old contract was worth $925, and that also had signing bonuses. So he effectively is taking a $25,000 pay cut to stay in Boston. And he took the deal. And I think this is a last chance for him. I think they're giving him the last chance. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, here we have another instance of a draft pick who is struggling
Mm-hmm.
in this organization, struggling to develop, struggling to reach a level of expectation that maybe there was when drafting this player. It's interesting with the 1-year deal and bringing in a coach in Marco Sturm, who has been applauded for his development of young players in the Los Angeles Kings system.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is one of those instances where, okay, maybe this is your last chance. We do see something there.
Yep.
Maybe Sturm can bring it out in
Right.
the future more consistently and to the level that justifies being a high draft pick. If that doesn't happen,
He won't make it past March on the
no.
team, I don't think.
I'm not sure I would even give him that much time, honestly.
Right. Yeah. He's going to be certainly traded for something. And I think, thinking back on his previous couple of seasons, when he made it out of rookie camp, alongside Mason Lohrei and all those kind of young kids, that group, he certainly has special skills when it comes to like face-offs. He was one that was doing a great job with that. And he does do some things very well. But as
Yes,
we have
but
seen
consistency.
as we have seen with, again, that little group that I'm going to just call the kids, right? Who all kind of came up together, Patra, Lohrei, Beecher. The problem with those kids is they've not been developed properly. And I'm not saying it in a way that doesn't put some of the responsibility on them. Like, obviously,
Yes.
there's stuff that they have to
They
be doing.
failed. Yeah. They failed to
But-
take advantage of opportunities
Right.
that were clearly provided them in
Yeah.
training camp scenarios where, in past years, there weren't a lot of open
Right.
roster spots
Right.
on the Boston Bruins team.
They got
right?
lucky in that time period because there were open spots. However, on the flip side, last year in particular, I feel like those kids were put in scenarios where they never were going to succeed, right? Like, putting Mason Lohrei, and we'll talk about him, on in a position where without Charlie McAvoy and any sort of really good guiding hand, like, he went awry, so maybe don't put him in that situation because he's 23 and he doesn't know what he's doing. Or with Patra, why are you not calling him up to give him the experience? Or with Beecher, like, why are you playing him in this way? So, there were two sides to kind of what's happened with that particular group of kids. But yeah, we'll see if the new coach can kind of help turn them around because they are the kids, right? This is the best that we have with this particular age group, because right now our best players are quickly approaching 30 years old, and you need to make sure that the next batch in line right behind them, your 20 to 25-year-olds, are getting properly developed so that they can take over. And that's the big question mark, and Beecher falls into that particular group. The other of the kids, obviously, Mason Lohrei surprised everybody with a 2-year, $3.2 million signing with signing bonuses this coming season worth $250,000. This is obviously a significant pay bump from his $925K previously. We've alluded to this particular contract in previous episodes with complete shock, because I think we both agree that when he's good, he's very, very good. It's a lot like how it was with Matt Grzelcyk. When he's great, he's great. When he's
And
bad,
when he's
my
bad,
God,
it
it's horrible.
it's bad. And not just bad where you say, oh, geez, a young player made a mistake. No, he's bad is in that
Detrimental.
it's costly. Okay.
Yes.
It can be costly. And
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
it's an overpay. This one, there's a couple of them I don't understand. And,
Yeah.
Far be it from me to try and understand because, Don Sweeney's from Harvard and he's a lot smarter than me. But Jesus Christ, like, really? You rewarded this kid with that much of a bump
Yeah.
in pay? I don't understand it. I would like to have someone in that organization explain to me the justification for that significant a jump
Right.
in this player's salary.
It should be, I would have said I was maybe expecting a 1.5, right? And
I would have even said, two something. Okay, right? Because again, in the scheme of things, what is that to an organization, right? At this point in hockey.
right.
But 3.2, when you have clear and definable needs. And I know you can't carry the money over from one year to the other, right? But does that mean that you should spend it all or a big part of it in an area that you scratch your head going, huh? But why?
They could have used that extra million or two to pay Brad Marchand. Instead, we've got an overpaid
So that
Mason
basically,
Lohrei.
you make a good point because that's
The
basically
difference.
what you did.
That
So
was
you
the
gave
difference.
it to a 23-year-old kid who now offensively as a defenseman, he's clearly gifted.
Yeah.
And he seems to, that aspect of his game comes more naturally to him.
Yeah.
But the defensive part of his game still needs a ton of work. And so again, these are the decisions where you want to just look Don Sweeney in the face and say, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's that one's a head scratcher. And more evidence to the notion, the idea that when Don and Cam are negotiating, that they are the worst negotiators out there, that they're the absolute worst, that they're terrible at negotiating. And I think this is one of them. So, the last extension also kind of came in at the 11th hour. That did surprise me. So we talked about Henri Jokiharju during our trade acquisition player profiles. And he was one that, again, coming in so late into the season, only playing those 20 games on a team that was just already drowning and, difficult to watch. Um, he was the one that we weren't really sure if he actually wanted to be in Boston, because if you recall at the trade deadline, he effectively said to Buffalo, because that's where he came from, he wanted out, just get me out of here. And Buffalo essentially just gave him to Boston for, I think, basically nothing in return. So we had raised the question, does he even actually want to be in Boston? Is this a place that he wants to be in? Is he a good enough defenseman? Like, what kind of defensive abilities does he even bring to the table? So whatever he did in those 20 games, Bruins management thought well of him, because he earned himself a 3x3 million contract with signing bonuses in 25-26 worth $500,000, and then in 26-27 a signing bonus of $250,000, and your favorite, a modified no trade clause for the 25-26 season, an 8-team no trade list. So what do you think of this one? I was surprised, but
I
what
was
do you think of
too.
it?
I was too, because I think we were both in agreement that this would be one player where we would be like, I'm not going to shed any tears if they move on.
Right.
I think he's young.
Mm-hmm.
He's young. He, last season, I'm just looking at his now career wise, in 407 games, he's had 19 goals, 78 assists, which is not too shabby.
Sure.
Career wise, though, he's overall in his career, he's a -17, although he finished the 2024-25 season as a +13.
Mm-hmm.
So there must, again, the Bruins want to become a harder team to play against. We've heard
Mhm.
that terminology used quite often already in this offseason, almost
Yeah.
to the point where, it's making me nauseous to continue to hear it.
Yeah.
That and the term, we want to play with more juice, which I'm like, give me a break.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
give me a break. So, you can, we've talked about this before. You can have enough defense. You can never have enough goaltending, right?
Right. Yep.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's an interesting one because,
and again, maybe a little overpay too.
well, yeah. So two things. One, to your point of his kind of maybe less than fantastic statistics, keep in mind where he is coming from. He's
Yes.
coming from Chicago. He's coming from Buffalo. So
Not good teams.
not
Yeah.
exactly
No. Understood. Yeah.
right.
And
So
that's probably
context.
one of the rationales, because again, they
You can only
clearly
do so much.
they want to go back from what Sturm says, Sweeney says. They want to go back to a more, well, let's see if this comes to fruition. I call it back to the Claude Julien days,
Mhm.
where we're likely going to be having to watch a lot of games where you hope they get a lead and then they protect that lead and you end up winning the game, 3-2, 2-1,
Mhm.
somewhere along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But that's exhausting hockey.
it is exhausting. It's exhausting to fans. It's frustrating to fans.
Yeah.
Because, that style of play,
Mhm.
everybody has to be defensively responsible.
Right. Right.
So
But then
will
what
that
that's
come at the expense of potential
right.
offense? I don't know. Again,
And that's what you have to do when you don't have a ton of offensive power, which
yes,
obviously, as
they
we're going to discuss,
correct.
they
We'll
didn't
get
bring
there.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing, that I wanted to bring up was, you mentioned his price tag. Now, when we had our conversation about him a couple of episodes ago, one of the things that also gave you pause and hesitation was his contract that he was finishing up, which was a $3.1 million contract. And the price kind of gave you pause. He took a quote unquote pay cut of $100,000. But he made up for it in the fact that he got a little bit of term, like a little bit of a bridge deal. Any kind of reaction to that? Or is it more of a, well, let's wait and see now because he's here for X number of years. Is he actually worth
Yeah.
$3
I
million?
mean, I guess I have no choice but to say, let's wait and see. That might explain why Lori got what he got, because maybe they anticipated, right? And they probably didn't want Yokiharu to be making more money than Lori. You know, these are the dilemmas that when you sometimes mismanage your roster or misallocate, you know, player values, this is the conundrum or the pickle or the mess that you get yourself into. One can only hope that he continues on an upward trajectory and becomes maybe, you know, a team who, because listen, any playoff contending team at some point in time is always looking for defensive help heading into the playoffs. I mean, look at what Seth Jones did for the Florida Panthers. And I'm not comparing this kid to Seth Jones. I'm just the analogy of, you know, needing to shore up and have as much defensive depth. So maybe one of the two of them, either Yokiharu or Lori, becomes a viable asset for the Bruins.
Exactly. Yep. So let's dive in now to the new folks on the team. First, I'm going to talk about actually the trade acquisition. Victor Arvidsson, he was traded in from Edmonton. He's on year 2 of a 2-year, $4 million contract. Edmonton did not retain any of that, so that is a $4 million paycheck coming straight from Boston. And keep in mind, he is a 32-year-old winger. Thoughts on this? It basically, you know, another one of those like Yokiharu situation where it's like, all right, here, take this guy. You know, I'm sure Edmonton was trying to shed cap. So here's this veteran player.
Why did you take his whole salary? Like, why are you doing favors for the Edmonton Oilers?
Right. So keep this in mind. Here's a little bit of info on him if you don't know who he is. Obviously, he is coming from Edmonton. Last season, he played 67 games. So pretty much most of the season, he had 15 goals. All right. I'm not going to, you know, based on our current situation, I'm not going to say poo-poo to 15 goals. 12 assists for 27 points. He was a -3. And he had 24 penalty minutes. But on the plus side, his Corsi for, so the man does take shots, was over 50%. It was 55%. So, I mean, I guess I can't be mad about that. What kind of role do you think this guy is going to even be playing on the team? Because
I hope this guy will light a fire under Pavel Zacha's ass, especially if this guy has a shoot first mentality, which is what we've heard, that he will take a shot, whereas Pavel Zacha sometimes doesn't take the shot that's given to him. There's a potential upside, right, to him as a player. He's got decent playoff stats. Again, not that this roster is a playoff roster at this point in time.
Right. Yep.
But if nothing else, maybe it will light a fire under
I mean, you know,
Zacha's feet, and maybe it will give them flexibility to be able to have moving parts on, you know, within the first 3 lines.
Sure, exactly. So, you know, Arvidsson's coming off of a team that was just on obviously the Ultimate Cup run. You know, thinking about where he could be placed on the roster, I think general consensus is that he would be a second line right wing. And that Pavel Zacha would be moving to the left wing to be centered by Casey Middlestat. You know, we didn't really see, I mean, again, those final 20 games when we were all in deep mourning, like nobody was really paying attention. So we don't really know what that's going to look like potentially. but
No,
I would like
I'm
to
going to tell
think.
you something,
Yeah.
though. If
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if this year's team
Mhm.
and coaching staff and management doesn't address their secondary scoring problems,
Right.
okay, once and for all,
Yeah.
this rebuild is going to be worthless.
Mhm.
Going to be worthless. And
Mhm.
maybe that's some of what, the hope for Victor Arvidsson will be, where they
Mhm.
can maybe try to balance and not have one top heavy line. But
Sure.
I mean, and again, I hate to keep going back and comparing, but the Florida Panthers have set the standard
Yes.
in the league for what you need to do to be a successful team, not the best team in the league. They don't care about the
Right.
President's Trophy, but to be an elite team in the playoffs, they have set the standard. And
Mhm.
you look at their lines and you see that they have balanced scoring
Mhm.
throughout
Yeah.
their lines. So the Bruins have got to figure this out. Maybe that's part of it. I still don't get why they felt the need to take the entire contract.
Yeah. I don't know. They had the space. I have no idea. But I will say one thing, and it's I need to see this potential second line. If this is our base second line of Zaka, Middlestat, and Arvidsson, I'm going to need to see 40 to 50 goals from this line this coming season.
Oh, yeah,
Minimum, right?
minimum.
Because
No.
I'm tired.
I think
Minimum
I
40
know.
to 50 goals out of these combined players. And that's being forgiving and allowing Casey Middlestat to effectively not have to score any goals. But
It has to come somewhere.
it's got to
It has
come from your top six.
it
I'm
has
not
to
worried about the top line, right? Like I'm expecting,
No, they're gonna get there.
100 goals from the top line.
No, I know.
I need to see 40 to 50 from that second line to feel like we're moving in the right direction for
But
this.
are we setting our expectations much too high? And are we setting ourselves up for disappointment? Now, hard to answer
Right.
either one of those questions right
Right.
now until we start seeing games. But I think we're going to be able to get those questions answered pretty quick into
Right.
the season.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. So next we will talk about the actual signings. So we brought in Jordan Harris from the Columbus Blue Jackets, a 25-year-old defenseman. He was traded in 2024 from the Habs to Columbus, but he was not given a qualifying offer, so that made him a UFA for this offseason. He'd been making $1.4 million annually in his previous contracts, but in signing with Boston, he actually took a pretty significant pay cut with a 1-year deal worth $825,000. So really quickly, because I had no idea who this kid was. He played only 33 games last year, with a goal and 4 assists, -1. I think this is probably one of those situations where we need to gather a defenseman just to have in the wings. Maybe he's going to be
Depth,
in
yeah.
the seventh or eighth defenseman to move up and down. But I just thought it was really intriguing that he was being paid, over $1 million previously, and then got this 1-year deal for quite a lot less. So made me think like, what was going on here with this
He's
kid?
a local boy, and so we know how much Donnie loves his local boys.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was
discount.
a match that worked out not only for the organization but for the player too. So, and again, credit to the player for being willing to take a quote unquote hometown discount. But
Yep.
it-
Yeah. So
I'm told I have very little expectation of this
yeah, if
player,
we see much of him at all, because
unless there's,
Boston.
and let's hope this is not the case, unless there are injuries again
Yeah.
to key defensive players. I'm not
Right.
sure we're going to see a
Right.
lot of Jordan Harris.
Right.
But who knows?
Yeah.
He could shock the world.
Who knows?
Right?
Sure. So our last two signings, I'm going to be very intrigued to see how they compare as the season progresses, because I'm talking about, of course, Tanner Jeannot and Michael Eyssimont. Now, both players are 28-year-old forwards, okay? The difference in what their terms are and their pay is significant.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know much about these players other than the stats and the information that I have read about them and seen in their, trade histories and blah, blah, blah. But this is going to be really interesting for me to track. I believe both players are effectively third line players. So let's start out with the easy one, which is Eyssimont, because there's just less to talk about him, I suppose. So he was traded this past year at the deadline from Tampa Bay to Seattle. He's received a 2 times $1.4 million contract, which is an increase from the $800,000 that he got from Tampa Bay. So kind of actually the inverse of what happened with Jordan Harris. So clearly Boston sees something in this forward. Per the internet, it says he can play all three positions. So he's likely, though, going to get a winger role. He's fairly, I thought he was fairly, unknown to me. But he played 77 games last season. So he clearly was out there doing his thing. 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points. He was a +1. And his Corsi for percentage is a 52. So I'm intrigued by him just from those statistics alone, that here you've got this kid who is making, 1 and change or whatever I just said. And $1.45 million. And I think he's a little bit of a dark horse. I like that he played a full 77 last year. If he's a third liner, 9 goals, I'm not mad about that.
No.
So I'm intrigued. I don't know about your thoughts on him, if you knew anything about him.
I am
Yep.
too. And I like the fact that, there's an addition of competition for certain roles. And hopefully, we talked about this last year at the start of the season about what a shit show training camp was. And there seemed to be, no clear direction or structure or, it was just not good. It was just not good. So, I think that this season there are actually viable spots that, in essence, these will be tryouts.
Yes.
These will be tryouts, and you are likely going to earn, I hope, you are likely going to earn your role or your spot in the opening day lineup by virtue of what you accomplish during training camp and maybe, some of the preseason games. So I'm okay with this signing.
Yep.
It didn't cost you a lot.
No.
There's a good opportunity for a viable return and reward at low risk. At low risk. Now let's get to the other guy.
The other guy, the semi counterpart. So, like I said, I'm expecting Eyssimont to be your third line right winger and the left winger. Oh, and you know what, Maria? I just realized I forgot to put down some notes about another player. So we're gonna have to do his review on the fly. but he's an old friend of the team, so it shouldn't be.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Corrally.
I forgot all about him, but
Yeah.
we're going to talk about Tanner Jeannot.
Mr. Corrally.
But Tanner Jeannot, so I, again, have heard that there was a lot of competition for this guy. And if you recall, and we've talked a little bit about him.
Okay, but just because there's competition doesn't mean
he's
that
good.
you have to be the highest bidder.
Right. And was his alleged bidding war over him due to the fact that he can actually accomplish something, or is it because of the lack of options available in the free agency? But regardless, so Tanner Jeannot essentially has taken over the contract of what Trent Frederick had. So he's signed a 5-year, $3.4 million contract.
5 years.
With signing bonuses, and not tiny signing bonuses either. In 25-26, it's a $2.25 million bonus. 26-27, a 1.5, and 27-28, a 1 million. And he has a full no trade through 2027. And then it goes modified for the next 2 seasons after, with a 15-team no trade followed by a 7-team no trade. Now, what irritates me about this particular contract, because look, big picture, $3.4 million, not a ton of money, right?
No, and it's not the money. It's the term.
Right. Fair value, and even potentially fair term for a decent third line player, right? My particular issue becomes the term and a little bit of the pay when I do a little bit of deeper digging on this particular
Bingo.
player.
Because he hasn't panned out
Right.
anywhere that he has landed.
Right. He seems to have failed to meet expectations every team that he has played for in the NHL. That arguably the last time he was what I would consider successful was when he played for the Moose Jaw Warriors. And this was, quite a number of years ago at this point. Now, yes, I've heard the stories about how he is one of the most fit players, that he has, awards named after him for his, fitness and his commitment to
He's
to
good
his
in
body.
the locker room. He's a character guy. He'll defend his teammates, blah, blah, blah.
Right. But I'm also getting a little bit tired of this team, instead of trying to develop its own identity, whatever this post Golden Age Bruins, because the Golden Age for me, of course, was the Chara, Bergeron, Marchand era. It now is the time for the team to figure out and develop its own new culture and its own identity. And right now, what it seems like they've been doing for the last 2 years is, how do we be like Florida? Well, only Florida can be Florida, right? You can try to imitate it, and it will never pan out to be exactly the same. You're going to end up with a cheaper, in terms of quality, crappier version that is just inauthentic and not who you are. And I recently listened to Elliot Friedman talking about how, the impression that he's getting from around wherever is that Jeannot is being brought in to take on some of those minutes that Zadorov was getting. But let me tell you, my friend, Zadorov wasn't getting minutes for fighting. He was getting minutes because he was taking stupid penalties because he's a lazy player, not because he's getting into fights. And I don't want a guy who can just go out and get into fights just to get into fights or to be this tough guy or whatever. That's stupid. That is not what this game is. And the other idea that...
Is he going to be the juice that Don Sweeney keeps referring to?
But I feel like if it's Don or it's Cam, they're trying to, and you've seen this with their new throwback jersey, they're trying to go back to a time of old. tradition is important in hockey, right? It's one of the things that makes hockey as a sport unique to all other sports because tradition is so important. But you cannot just focus on tradition in a way that takes the way you play the game backwards. When the game that is being played out on the ice is completely different than how it was being played in the 1980s and the 1990s. This is a time of high skill, extremely high skill elite goal scorers, not a time of go out and punch and knock out other players. And that is what I got from this particular signing that makes me so irritated with this management, because it tells me that they are so disconnected from the reality. They are so unaware of what the product is that is out on the ice these days that I'm at a loss because I don't know what they're doing, and it pisses me off.
And it's troubling to me. It's troubling to me that you even right now at this, we just went through free agency. We just had development camp. Rookie camp is going to be starting. And I have yet to understand what this team's identity is going to be. I've yet to understand the direction that management is going in, even with these particular signings. And I know that the phrase that they keep using is, we want to be a team that's hard to play against. Okay, I can wrap my head around that, right? Because there was too much, and we talked about it ad nauseum, where the opposing team was literally game after game, shift after shift, period after period, skating in, dancing in, waltzing in, walking into our own end of the ice, virtually untouched. Okay, I can get on board with that. But the last time I checked, you still have to score one more goal than the other team in order to win games.
Right. Yep.
And I hate to sound like a broken record, and I hate to sound like an old head, but Jesus Christ, this lack of balanced scoring problem has gone back way beyond where we find ourselves now.
Yeah.
Way beyond.
Yeah.
And this group has seemingly, and when I say this group, this management group, because they've been the ones pretty much in charge, okay? Hey, have not resolved the problem. And for experts to say, oh, well, they're just lining themselves up because there's a better crop of free agents coming in next year.
Right.
Don't let them off the friggin' hook.
No.
For basically what they have done, which is inexcusable roster mismanagement. Okay.
100%.
So again, Tanner Jeannot probably is a character guy. I've heard many people say, he's a great guy to have in the locker room. He's got the potential. He's got the potential. Okay. Well, we're not in a position, I think, that we can take reclamation projects or should be taking reclamation projects.
Right.
Not at that kind of a term.
Right. We can't afford a personality hire right now. We're in a startup phase. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody contributing. And I just, yes, we talk about a lot, it's important to have people contributing off the ice. That is very important. Obviously, we saw what happened when you subtracted all of those off ice support people, what happened then on ice. But right now we're trying to you need to find a balance between making sure that you can have a good off ice, team and a good on ice team. And for that amount of money, for that amount of time, I'm not convinced that it's enough to make a difference on or off the ice. So who knows? Again,
I mean, his agent has got to be phenomenal to have been
I
able to
know.
negotiate. Like,
I know.
and how does he keep getting these opportunities? I don't know. That's the one to me that is like, you dumped Freddie.
Right.
Now,
And you picked up
again,
this, which is just
right?
as bad.
This player is likely going to be, or is on paper, probably a better player than Freddie. But why the 5 years?
Right.
Why?
Especially considering he's been traded mid-season 2 years in a row. I mean, that's just about as bad as not getting a qualifying offer. Like, well, what does that mean? What's wrong with you? That's suspicious. Like, I don't like that. But we will, of course, get into his situation more in the coming months. But of course, I didn't want to forget quickly the other one that he's come back into the fold, Sean Kuraly. So if you recall, he started out in Boston way back in 2016, and he was with Boston for a number of years, including through the sad 2019 Cup run, and actually his contract in Boston ended in 2021, and he left as a UFA to go out to Columbus, where he spent 4 years, and he actually took on a great leadership role there. He wore an A number of times, but he is, of course, coming towards the end of his career. He is 32 years old. He just signed a 2-year contract for a little bit less money than he'd been making in Columbus. There, he'd been making 2.5. In Boston, he's going to be making 1.85. With some, no, he's actually not getting any bonuses. I was just going to say, but this is a guy who, we haven't seen him in 4 years. You're going to see him probably at least to start as centering your third line. But this is a guy who maybe he's not going to be the biggest producer.
No.
He's maybe not the, he's obviously not going to be playing top line minutes, but this is a guy, I think, who is going to provide good leadership on the ice for the bottom 6 players, especially the kids. And he's going to provide good leadership off the ice in the locker room. And he costs a hell of a lot less. But what are you thinking about Sean Kuraly returning to Boston?
I mean, again, none of these signings made me want to, dance on a table. Okay.
Sure.
And, my last memories of Sean Kuraly were, I had higher expectations for him than what he ultimately ended up providing, to us. And I understand why the Bruins, moved on and let him go out and, get his bag of cash someplace else, because they weren't in a position where they were going to be paying whatever the market value was at the time. Again, another, just another guy, another guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Just another guy, welcome back. I'm sure he's excited to be back.
Yep.
He has familiarity with maybe some of the players currently on the roster, certainly with management. Management has familiarity with the player. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're building a roster of this. This isn't 2011.
Yeah. For me, I'm hoping, the biggest role that we realized that the team did not have last year at all, even at the very beginning, was an Uncle Nick. So now we're just forever going to call that role the Uncle Nick, right?
Well, it started even before that with, the likes
Sure.
of, we can start with Chara, but then,
Right.
Mark Recchi, Nick
Yeah.
Foligno,
Yeah.
we can't underestimate Charlie Coyles.
Sure.
contribution as,
Yeah.
a leader in that room. So yes,
Yeah.
all important aspects
Yeah.
of a team's dynamic and culture.
Yeah, and even when they traded Nick Foligno away, they brought in Kevin Shattenkirk, who kind of was also a little bit in that role. You need that. This is going to sound ridiculous, but almost like a den mother type for the bottom six to really be like the leader of those guys, right? And there was no Uncle Nick last year for that group. Really, there wasn't. And I think it was, it wasn't something that Charlie Coyle could truly take over last year because he was having a rough year. So it's like really hard, I think, to play that role when you yourself are having such a difficult year and you're wrapped up in all of that as well. And so I think that that's the role that he could potentially be taking over. And hopefully that's an element that helps with everything that's disastrous happening off the ice, as well as on the ice. So I'm not mad about it. I mean, I think,
No, I'm not
I
mad.
agree.
I'm not mad. I'm just like, okay, ho hum. Like it doesn't, it
Right.
doesn't give me none of these signings, right? And I'm not sure that anybody is. We're probably not alone. None of these signings and deals give me a warm and fuzzy. Now, might I get a little bit warm and fuzzy when I see players on the ice and
Yeah.
chemistry maybe developing? But,
Right.
right now on paper,
Yeah.
this is not a roster that gives a lot of other teams in the league pause for concern.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Maybe defensively, and maybe that's the road they're going to go down.
Yep.
Maybe defensively, because, Jeremy Swayman needs and will. I mean, I'm going to say that he if he doesn't have a better year, this team is in a shit ton of trouble. A shit ton of trouble. Now, based on how he performed in the Four Nations, it seems like he was on an upward trajectory,
Mhm.
right? And I think having McAvoy and Lindholm back and healthy and staying healthy, because
Mhm.
I thought the Bruins defense was going to be miserable for other teams to play against last season.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately was not the case more often than not.
Mhm.
So those are areas that I'm going to say will improve.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we shall see. We shall see. So, it's already been well over an hour. So we will call it there. What grade? Real quick. If you were going to give this free agency, what kind of letter grade are you handing out?
D.
Yeah. Well, I said D plus.
Yeah.
So you can read a little bit more about that on our
beforehand,
Substack.
folks. We
Yeah.
didn't discuss this
No.
before
no.
we started. So,
Yeah, right
and
there.
maybe we're being too, I don't know. Maybe, we still have scars from last season, but
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be an optimistic fan right now because it just seems like we it's still very much an unmoored situation. But as we go through the summer, we're going to talk again a little bit more about these players, especially the ones that we sort of glossed over, to see, okay, is there there? What did management see potentially in this player that made them go, yeah, we got to get this guy. This is the guy that we want. So we will look a little bit further. We'll dig a little bit more. We'll bring you that information and see if our opinions have changed on that at all. This is also, I forgot to announce at the top of the show, this is our 99th episode. So next week, we will have a very special guest to help us celebrate our 100th episode. And then it'll be almost time for preseason stuff. So, any final thoughts, Maria?
I can't believe we're almost at 100 episodes. That's pretty exciting. That
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
I can only hope to live to be 100.
Same. Same. Maybe. I don't know. If I got to watch another,
Oh, no, no.
50 years of this hockey, I don't know if I could do that. But anyways, as always, thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow us on all of our socials, Tape to Tape MK. Check out our Patreon for exclusive things. And as always, go Bees.
Go Bees.